Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Elle O'Flaherty. And I hope I pronounced your name right. I trained. How are you
You
doing?
did.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for saying yes to our interview. And I would love to introduce you to the audience, of course. You are a performance optimization and career satisfaction speaker and coach known for your engaging presentations, blending practical insights with transformative ideas. Founder of Interlace Solutions, an executive coaching firm specializing in ADHD. You draw from 17 years of experience as an attorney to help others successfully navigate career pivots. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Elle O'Flaherty.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here, and you said that perfectly.
Thank you so much. I was a little bit afraid, but we overcome this when we are doing this, when we face the fear, right? Not the fear, but yes. And I love that because we can show ourselves how we are, right? So my first question to you is, how did your background as an attorney shape your approach to career coaching?
Great question. Well, I think that one of the big things when it comes to people finding happiness and fulfillment in their careers is that we're very rarely asked if we enjoy something. We're very often asked, what are we good at? And encouraged to follow that and become that thing. And so I did. And I was a pretty good attorney for the better part of 2 decades, but I didn't really enjoy it. It didn't suit my personality very well. And it didn't really play to my strengths as much as it could have. And so after working, for a while, I was in a job that on paper seems like it should be great. I was representing the United States for the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. It was just really interesting. But what I loved was helping and coaching my team who worked with me. Um, and it felt like a calling. So I started there and started coaching other people. And as my husband likes to say, I have really started about 4 or 5 successful companies, but I keep following my interest. And so things keep changing.
Wow, I love that. And isn't it strange when you find yourself doing other things that what you are supposed to do? And you love this and you enjoy this, and you talked about a calling as well. So how
Mhm.
was the transitioning period or the transformation?
It was scary. I'll say that going from being a lawyer in a very safe and stable government job to starting a brand new career in a brand new business, it seemed really like such a leap. It was definitely scary. I did it in the most risk averse way I possibly could have. I actually was working 2 jobs for quite some time. And so I saved up a good amount of runway, which really made my business possible. But it's interesting when you go from spending the first half of your career sort of pushing yourself through it and forcing yourself to get things done. And suddenly you find yourself in a place where you really love and enjoy what you're doing. It is just such a completely different experience. And now I work long hours because I can't stop myself, and I just overcommit because this is my passion and my life's meaning. So it's such a difference. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever turned and pivoted to a job that just felt right?
Yes, I feel it right now because podcasting is my passion, and I turned from accountant. Yes, this is the word. Yeah, I had a company and with 6 employees, and last year I closed it
Oh,
down, so to say. I don't know how the word is, but this is, and I love how you put it so easily, because you work 2 decades, you said, but the joy was missing. And then so many people are there doing jobs they don't like, but they ask themselves, what is it? What is missing? And you just say, I was not enjoying it. And same for me. So here I am. Yeah.
isn't it amazing how much
Mm.
easier things become once you enjoy your work? And I think a lot of people don't even think it's possible because we're so used to being told that work should be this grind, this thing that we are, dreading on Sunday nights, but Um, just and I did too. I absolutely thought that's what work meant. But now experiencing the other side of the rainbow, it's amazing. And so a lot of what I focus on in my speaking and my coaching is helping people find their other side of the rainbow. And um, it's amazing how much joy, absolutely, you use the exact right word, how much more joy we have in our lives when we feel like we're aligned with where we should be and what we should be doing. And so I feel like I'm a totally different person than I was, before I made this change. What about you? Do you feel like you've changed as a person?
Definitely, yes. And what you said about you had two jobs for a certain period of time. This is the question because I dropped everything and started traveling because this is my passion too. And to
Mm,
combine the two is the next step for me, of course. Yes, and it feels like I love this image or analogy you used with the rainbow. And there's a story, right? There's the how is it the gold pot or the honey pot on the other side? I don't know. There's a
yep.
story about that.
Yeah, the pot of gold, absolutely.
Pot of gold. Ah, pot of gold it is called. I have to look it up. Then I'll be prepared for the next interview. And I have another question, of course. Let's see. What are some key strategies for managing ADHD in a fast-paced work environment?
Good question. So of course, my main passion and mission is really helping the ADHD community. And I think a huge part of it we've discussed because whereas neurotypical people have importance-based brains, so they're able to prioritize based on importance to them or their boss or their partner. We lack that functionality and we have interest based brains. And so I think one huge thing is following our interest and making sure that the primary work that we're doing is something that we find so interesting and fascinating that we want to do it. Otherwise, we spend the whole day forcing ourselves, kind of white knuckling our way through it. Um, I think the other thing is to be in an environment where you are appreciated. The superpowers that come with ADHD are tremendous, and they include things like creativity, hyper focus, where we are just hugely productive if we're interested in what we're doing. And we tend to be innovators. We don't think outside the box. We don't realize there's a box. And so being in a place that values that and they're looking for people like us is so important. And it's one of the reasons why I've been more and more working with organizations to give some training on ADHD and how to work with ADHD brains. Because we are such can be such tremendous contributors that it's really a huge loss. And I mean, right down to the innovations that drive revenue. So I think that making sure that workplaces are supporting us as much as we are looking for occupations and workplaces that we enjoy.
Yes, and I went to your Instagram profile, and the first thing no, I have to mention it because it came into my mind, of course, and this is an inspired podcast, so it's all about intuition. And the first image I saw was the Ritalin. How is it called? Ritalin thing, the
Oh,
medicine.
Ritalin, yes. Mhm.
Literally, yes. In I saw this, and it is related to ADHD or it is the first thing you give. For example, you give children, right? I don't know the situation in the US, but here in Germany, it's the first. Then they recommend this to give your kid that it can stay focused. But you mentioned the hyper focus. So how is the relation or
Good
correlation?
question.
Yes.
Yeah, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is actually a terrible name. I don't know who named this. They obviously didn't know enough about it yet, but it's not that we lack attention, it's that we have situationally variable attention. And so, in a situation where we're interested, we have far, far more focus and attention than the average person. And in fact, it's difficult for us to stop doing whatever it is we're doing. But in an area or in a situation where we are not interested and it doesn't sort of fire our brain, that's when we have a lot of difficulty focusing and paying attention. And so, yes, the medications now, there's almost 3 dozen. We have many options for medications for ADHD. It is considered the gold standard of treatment. I'm pretty neutral on whether or not people want to take the medication. The one nice thing is that it's very fast acting. So it enters your system and it leaves your system quite quickly. So a lot of ADHD people will choose when they want to take the medication versus when they want to just sort of let their brain breathe. Um, but it's really very, very helpful in a lot of situations. I take medication myself, and I find that it allows me to choose what I want to focus on. Now, I still have to make the right choice and make sure that it's, the most important thing, but yeah, it just makes everything quite a bit easier.
Wow, I love how so for the first time someone explained this to me in a way I understand. And oh, thank you for this. I mean it. And when I think of ADHD, then I think, or I heard that the like how is the word, the things from the outside world like noises or impulses or whatever, it comes without filter,
Yes.
the function to filter or to see what's important is lacking, or
So, yes, our brains filter out less information than neurotypical folks, which means the upside is we see way more things and we're able to make more connections, which is why we're such great innovators and we have these really forward leaning ideas. But the downside is sometimes it can be overwhelming. And so, as you said, things like sound, or for some of us, touch or sensory issues, things like that can become too much. And so, especially in workplaces and nowadays when they want, at least in the United States, pretty much everyone to sit in one big room, that's not so great for a lot of folks with ADHD. And so being able to change how we're working, where we're working, wearing even just noise canceling headphones can be big. So yeah, it is something that we have to manage because we have so much more coming in, similar to our sister neurodivergence on the autism spectrum, that we can get overwhelmed and burned out by too much input.
oh, yes. Thank you so much for clarifying. And I don't know if I can dare another question in that field, because you are the expert now and or here on that show today. And I have a question because I thought a lot about the word deficit, this attention deficit or something. And when it is diagnosed with children or for children, or when children are diagnosed by this. So I thought about where does it come from, and for me, I always thought that it can be a lack of attention that parents gave to the kid.
Hmm.
What do you think
Um,
about? Mhm.
well, we actually believe that there's a genetic link to ADHD. And if a parent has ADHD, their children have about a 50% chance of also inheriting it. Um, there has been some really interesting research out of the National Institutes of Health here in the United States where they did modeling on early human groups and found that having a small percentage of members of the group with ADHD traits is actually, it was critical to early human survival because we have a higher risk tolerance, we have a higher curiosity drive and a willingness to seek out new information. And so we were basically great at being hunters and gatherers, amazing hunters gatherers. But when the Industrial Revolution came around and we were told to sit quietly at a desk, that's when the wheels fell off a bit for many of us.
Okay, I understand. Thank you so much. I have to look up this study. Of course, it's very interesting. And I have another question. Of course, how can professionals accelerate their growth while maintaining work-life balance?
Oh, that's such an important one. Well, it really comes first with examining, in my opinion, why you want work life balance. It's a buzz phrase that a lot of people throw around, but unless it's connected to a reason and we see the benefit of work life balance, I think it's very difficult for many of us to draw that line. And so, first, asking yourselves, why. Basically, a lot of why questions. Why is this important? To get down to the nugget of what you ultimately want this balance for. And for some of us, maybe it's our family. Maybe it's time to travel in your case, for instance. It could be lots of different things. But once we get down to that really core motivation, I think it's easier for us to draw boundaries so that we are able to do those things that are the ultimately most important to us. Um, I also think that it's important to take a look at how we're spending our time. Um, there are only so many days that human beings can actually be and should be productive in a day. And I think that chaining ourselves to our desks for longer and longer periods of time probably isn't that healthy and it probably isn't all that productive. So I see having downtime, rest, and time for family and hobbies as absolutely a critical component of being a professional.
Wow, what a great answer. Thank you so much. Resting, relaxing, taking time or investing time in your family, traveling. I love that. Thank you so much. And I think our last question is about your goals and intentions and what is one of your next projects?
Well, thank you for asking that. Um, my passion is twofold. It's informing people about ADHD and also helping to reduce the stigma. There's a huge, huge stigma around ADHD that's unfortunate and unnecessary. And so, right now, I'm really reaching out to a lot of organizations and collaborating with them to teach folks about ADHD and how to work better with us. This week, I'm actually launching an online course for ADHD job seekers that walks you through everything from figuring out what your career path should look like or could look like, all the way through to negotiating your salary and transitioning into the job. And so I'm trying to work up and down and all around to help ADHD professionals as much as I can. And I think that'll keep me busy for a long time to come.
Wow, I love that. It's about educating people about ADHD, reducing stigma, you said, and also, yeah, you don't call it prejudice, or I call it something like, yeah, I call it diversity, right? So
Yes,
like enhancing or promoting, I don't know, maybe.
absolutely.
Yeah, promoting diversity, spreading it to the world. It's so important to have all those facets of, yeah, humanity, let's say. Yes. And where can we find you when people want to reach out to you?
Well, my website is www.interlacesolutions.com. I'm also active and incredibly creative with my social media handles. I'm at Elle O'Flaherty, all one word, no apostrophe. So I'm easy to find, and I anything I can do to help the ADHD community, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you so much. I love your message. I love your mission. Yes, mission is the word also. And yeah, I think you were the first person in my podcast talking about that so important topic. Thank you so much. L.O. Flaherty. I have to practice this. The name is so beautiful. I have
Thank you.
to
You're actually doing wonderfully.
thank you so much. And now it's time for your last thoughts to the audience, please.
Well, if I could just leave one message, it would be that um, folks with ADHD brains are, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just different than some neurodiverse folks. And it doesn't mean that we're broken and it doesn't mean the way that we do things is wrong. It just means that there are many different ways of being in this world and there's plenty of room for all of us.
Thank you so much. What a great episode.
Thank you for having me.
And see you in the next one.